All right, hello, boys, girls, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, your buddy, Mr. G. Today, we are going to be talking about layer mask and getting ready for our upcoming animal mashup project. So I'm going to jump over here to Photoshop, and we're talking about layer mask. Layer masks are get rid of my selection there. Layer mask. What layer masks are? They are these invisible layers that are applied to a layer in Photoshop that are affected by black and white, and they are non-destructive. And when we say non-destructive, what I mean is that if I were to take this lady here and say I wanted to take away part of her eye here, so we'll just do that real quick here and say I want to hide that eye there, and I hit delete, and I go back and I've got that, and I come back and I end my session. Tomorrow I come back and I want to get this back. I've destroyed that information because I've essentially just cut a hole in my layer, and now I can't get that information back. So I can do that with a layer mask, however, and by going in here with a brush, and I could easily get black and white, and you can see everything that is black. I can show you the layer. I could disable this layer mask. Everything that's black is being hidden, and everything white is being revealed. So if I got black and I paint on the layer mask, I can hide that information. And if I get white, I can paint that information right back. So that's what we mean when we say non-destructive. And I could edit this and I could come back a year from now and still be able to put that information back. So that's what we mean when we say non-destructive editing techniques. Okay. This mask allows me to add and remove things at my will, and I can do it on a continuous basis, as opposed where I make a selection or paint or something directly onto the layer is going to directly affect the pixels and change them permanently. So you can see I've already applied a layer mask to this lady right here, and we could go ahead and click that off there. So that is hiding all that. I just have a black background behind here. So she did not have a background that I was happy with for putting my animal mashup. We're going to do some kind of leaves or foliage behind them that makes it look like we're in the forest or something. But my idea is I want to blend this picture of this lady with this fox. So for the animal mashup project, your biggest tool you're going to use is your brain and your ideas. You got to come up with a creative idea. You need to decide what you're going to put together and how you're going to do it. So if you want to, I like to rely on fantasy for this. So like if you would take like a mythological animal like a griffin that's like got the head of an eagle and the wings of an eagle and the body of a lion, that'd be kind of cool to make. Or if you wanted to make like a pegasus that had like a horse's body with swan's wings or eagle's wings, that would be a cool place to start. Or if you just have something you think would look really cool and you've seen something else and you want to try it, like I want to put the face of an orangutan on a koala bear or something like that, that'll work too. Okay, but the point of the project is that you're trying to blend two different textures together using mask and selections. All right. So in this case, I'm going to try and blend this lady's skin here, which is kind of pale and freckled, with the fox's fur here, which he's got kind of long, soft fur here, and he's got some whiskers and the color of his eyes. And I'm going to try to blend these things together. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make one of these layer masks on this fox. So to get that, I'm going to select the fox layer, make sure I've got it highlighted, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab any of my selection tools. Okay, I'm going to take my quick selection tool here. Now I could go around here and quickly select it, okay? But there is a button up here you'll notice in your options bar when you grab your smart selection tools. You have a select subject and you have a selected mask button here. So let's go ahead and we'll say select subject. Okay, now it's going to make an educated guess based on the contrast it sees of where this subject is, right? So anything that's blurred or it can't tell the edge on, it's going to have some trouble. Anywhere there's a lack of contrast of color or value, it's going to have some trouble. So right here between the body and the face, where it's kind of out of focus, it's not quite sure where it's at. So we can go ahead and hold down option with our quick selection tool, and we can take some bites out of this. But as soon as I get down here, you'll see that it's going to start grabbing too little or too much. So I'm going to try and refine this a little bit here just quickly with this. Go along here. You can see it's not quite sure. The whiskers are kind of giving it problems here. So you'll add and remove information there, and it will try to get some more precise. But you can see it can't really tell. So sometimes I got to kind of paint or draw those things in there with the selection. So that's what we're going to do with this other button right up here where it says select and mask. We're going to hit the select and mask button. It's going to take us in this whole other interface. Okay, now here's how mine looks. If you'd like yours to look like mine, I've switched this from the default one of onion skin. I'm going to change it to the overlay because I like this red overlay. I just push overlay here. And then I have my color set to red, pure red. So you go over and take your red all the way up here. You can really do any color. If it's a like contrast problem, you can change the color. I just keep it red. And then I got my opacity. It comes as a default at like 50%, but I like to turn it down just a little bit more to about 35% so I can see that background clearly. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this interface. You've got all these different controls over here, but our main toolbar over here is right over here. And I'm going to start from the bottom up. From the bottom here, we've got our zoom tool, and we can obviously zoom in here. Then we've got a pan tool or hand tool, which you can either get by clicking or you can just hold down your mouse and you can navigate around. You have a lasso tool here. Okay. So if I want to lasso up and I'm adding to the picture of the fox, not the mask, I'm going to just go in here and I can add those in. If I want to subtract something, I can come in here and I can subtract that out. So that's what the lasso tool does. Now, the lasso tool, we could do this whole project with a lasso tool here. I'm just going to kind of break up the edge here a little bit here. And you can see I can circle up anything I have. Okay. However, it's not going to be the fastest way to do it. Okay. And then above that, we have, again, the object selection tool. So we could try adding that if we wanted. We already got a good selection here. So we got most of the object selection. So that's probably not going to do us a whole lot of it. And then above that is the brush tool. Okay. Brush tool here. I'm going to zoom in here. Okay. In places where I can see, I can literally paint mask in and out. So this is particularly helpful if you have a Wacom tablet where you have a pressure sensitive, when you're trying to do hair or curly things or something like that. This whole screen is really made to help you select things that are innately hard to select in Photoshop, like glowing things, fuzzy things, smoke, fog, hair, especially like curly hair, is particularly hard for Photoshop to select. Okay, out of focus things in this case. So you can come in here with this brush tool, and I can make it. It's a brush, so I can make it bigger or smaller with my bracket tools, my left and right bracket keys. And I can also change from a soft brush to a hard brush up here. So it's about in the middle here. So I'm going to take here, but you can see that I can paint things in, and I can hold down option and I can paint things out. Okay. So if I get this much smaller here, you can see that I could actually go in here and paint along here and kind of add to my selection and kind of add some of those fuzzy edges to my fox guy here where I can see it. Okay. Now, alternatively, I also have this one just above that, which is called the Refine Edge Brush. Okay, what the Refine Edge Brush does in places like right here, where I can kind of see fine hairs out here and I can kind of see where the ear kind of ends, I can paint this in here. And what it's going to do, it's going to put it in at about 50%. It's going to have 50% of the hair hidden and 50% of it masked away underneath, so that it kind of is a blend. Okay. So I can go along here and it kind of gives this soft edge to it that's going to help to define that area where it is got very fine hairs. It's going to soften up that edge a little bit there. Okay. And above that, I have the quick selection tools, was how we started this. Okay. So the all tools, except for the refined edge tool, should be fairly familiar in function to you. Okay. So the refined edge tool, what I really want to point out, it's only good for refining the edge. You don't want to use it like out here in a big area that you want to have blocked away. You only want to use that in where the mask meets the selection. Okay. I also have out here, I'm going to go ahead and push Command 0 here. I also have a refine hair button up here, which we could go ahead and click that and see what happens there. And you're going to see it's going to come in here and do a few things. It did some refine edges around here. Maybe it did a good job, maybe not. That looks a little blocky to me. So we'll have to go in here and we're going to have to edit it. But regardless of what you're doing, you're going to be doing some adding and removing to your selection. Okay. And that's what this screen is all about adding to and removing from your selection. So be prepared to spend some time in here. Now, anywhere I see like this, like hard straight lines on a furry thing, like somebody with a furry face, I know that's not going to be. So kind of do some trial and error, see which tools you like best. If you have a Wacom tablet, like say the brush tool works really good. but I can kind of see where the edge of this guy's face is here. So I'm just going to kind of draw a jagged line here and kind of bring him in a little bit. And like he's got these fine whiskers on here too, and I think it might just be easier for me to draw or paint in with a 1 pixel brush those lines rather than try to get those in. And again, I can do those jagged lines and I can go back and soften them again with the edge selection tool a little bit and kind of paint those up a little bit there if I want. Kind of soften those in where it's a little bit softer. Down here I can clearly see where his face has not been painted or selected in, so I can go ahead and paint that edge in. Or I could use quick selection tool here and I could go in here and add it like this, like right there. And again, I want to kind of do this in bites where I am going in here and playing like that. Okay. But like I said, should be prepared to spend a good amount of time in this project in this screen here where you're going to be adding to and removing from your selection. Okay. So I'm kind of quickly going in here and doing a lot of this here. So something happens wrong you don't want, Command Z works just the same. So keep those all in mind. All right, so after you get done with your selection, you move that around and you say, I think I've got a pretty good things. You've got some other really sensitive little controls over here where you can refine it. I don't use these a whole lot. You can clear the selection and start over if you want, okay? But when I get down all the way to the bottom, you have your output settings, and that's what we're gonna do. Are we outputting this to a selection or do we want a mask? In our case, we wanna make a layer mask, okay? So I wanna go ahead and select that and say to a layer mask, and then I'm gonna say, okay, and that's going to output that like such, okay? Now I have, turn my girl off here, and now I have a mask, okay? Now, if things didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, looks like I got some kind of fuzzy edges over here. Over here looks a little problematic on this side of his face. So I might want to go back in there. If I want to go back in there, I can just go in here to the mask. I can just double click on that. It's going to take me back to this screen here where I can go back and I can paint and I can add things back to it, okay? So that's how we're going to bounce back and forth that. When you get it refined to where you want, you push OK. Okay. Now here's something I want to point out. Okay. So let's say I've spent lots of time making my mask and I've got a perfect mask of my fox. I got a perfect mask of my girl, obviously. So I've still got some problems with my mask I need to refine. But once I do all that, before I go and edit anything else to start putting these together, I'm going to make a duplicate of these guys. Okay. You can go up here to layer and go to duplicate layer right there. Or you can use the quick key of Command J to make a duplicate. I like to make a duplicate of this before I do this, and I'll just go ahead and turn this off and I'll lock them so that I can use them again, because sometimes I want to use parts. And what do I mean in this? So like in this case, I'm thinking I probably want to use the fox's eyes to put around her eyes and match them up with her eyes, because that's how I lined up the picture. And maybe I'll put her eyes behind there. And then I would like to use the fox's ears, and I'd like to make them kind of big enough to kind of cover up the top of her head here. Or maybe I want to tuck them into her hair, but I might want to cut some of these pieces apart. Or maybe I'll mask away this lower part and use the ears up here. And maybe when I want to do the eyes, I'll mask away the up part. But either way, I've got more than one selection, which I don't have to make that mask more than one time. I've already done that work, so let's not make double work for ourselves. Okay, so I like to make those copies just in case. Now, if I don't use them, that's fine. I can just leave the eyeball poked out and we won't use them. Okay, let's bounce over here to one where I've got a little bit more work going on. I'm going to bounce over here, and you can see a little bit. I've spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours on this one here. Okay, so we're going to spend several days on this project, so you want to make sure that you take your time. This is going to take some time. Okay, make good creative decisions. Okay, let me kind of dismantle what I've working here. We've got my main picture of my girl, which we started with here, and then I went ahead and I made a mask, and I put her face. I put the fox's face starting to go over top of her face, right? And you can see here in my mask when I option it out what I've masked away and what I haven't. Okay, and then on top of that, I put one of her face to let those eyes go through. So again, I have that extra copy. I didn't have to do that again. And again, you can see here where I've masked away and what I haven't, and I just kind of masked so that her eyes would stick through there. Okay. Then on top of that, I've got her ears going on here. So I'm working with that. Now, my next mask here, I'm going to go ahead and I want to go and put like the nose of this fox onto hers. So I can go ahead and either I can go back into that masking to do that part because I'm going to take that nose of the fox and it's not lining up right now and I don't need the rest of the parts because I already put those in, but I already got that. So again, I'll go ahead and take this guy, I'll do Command J, I'll make another copy and I'll lock that one just so we don't do it. I'll go here, I'm going to paint on that mask with black and white, and I'm just going to get a big old brush here, and I am going to let's make this a big hard brush, and I'm just going to mask away the parts that I don't need. I just need these parts for her nose, so I don't need the eyes or any of the ears. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint those away. Okay, and maybe I'll stop right there, and I can turn off these other parts so I just see this part here for her face. Now with that, I can go ahead and bring this up, and I say I want to put that nose about on hers. Now again, I can go in here and I can soften it up, and I can get a brush again. And again, I can either go back into the layer or I can double click on that and I'll go into the layer mask here where I can start painting away in the mask layer. If I like this layer kind of look at it, gives me those tools and the refine edge brushes. Or I can go in and do it just on the mask, painting with black and white. Either way, it's still going to give me a non-destructive solution to this little problem that I am making for myself. Okay, whatever the situation, you're going to have to make your own creative choices. So please keep that in mind. Everybody's going to be doing something different, right? So if your neighbor's putting a walrus's face onto a chimpanzee, that's the creative problem they have to figure out, not exactly what you have to figure out. So kind of keep that in mind. Go ahead and keep painting these out here until I get to a good stopping place here. So from there, I can go ahead and get a softer brush, maybe a little bit softer. And Z, take those down a little bit. And I could also use that refine edge brush up here where I come in here and bring that in a little bit. Around her face. And I'll kind of bounce back and forth around here, pushing and pulling until I get what I want. Then I'll output this to another layer mask. I can see here what I have left here, still on the brush with my black. So again, if I want to paint on that, I just select the layer mask and I can paint on that layer mask and click some more of that. I've got that really hard brush up here. Let's get that softer brush. And again, if you have a Wacom tablet or sensitive pen pressure device, you can use that to help paint in some of those and give some of those more brush strokes. So then I'll go ahead and I'll turn some of my other pieces back on here and kind of see where I'm at on my process, and I can back out and see how my progress is going. Okay, so I've got a lot more work to do on this, but I wanted to show you how my process works. Okay, I also got that background back here. I put this background here and I just turn the blending layer to a overlay, I believe. Yeah, I changed it to overlay. So you can play with some of those things there. They're going to help push her into the background a little bit. I got this little piece of her ear here I want to work on because she can't have two sets of ears. You got fox ears or human ears. Okay. So that's the process. So take your time. You're going to use multiple layers. Okay. Remember, if you can use as many animals as you want. If you want to bring multiple animals beyond just two animals, you can. In this case, I got a person and a fox I put together, but you can blend as many objects together as you want. Okay. All right. Stay creative, do good work, and I will talk to you soon.